Hey, everybody. Or will soon be everybody. Good morning, everybody. Hey, Roy and Todd. Hey, Mom. You can see that Miles is already up and about. Hey, Chris. Hey, Kelly. Hey, Marley and Carla and Toby, Gladys. Hey, Susan. Hey, Marty, Sunshine, Patty, Diane, Lynn, Lorena, Sarah. I turn off for 1 second, and hey, Lenora, Joanne, Todd over on Twitch, hey, Roberto, Becky, David, Susan, Lisa, Linda, Carol, Jan, Betsy, Jeff, Lindsay, Geraldine. Wow. I gotta check my mail for 1 second. I'm emailing back and forth with the boat people right now. I'm not on the road again. I just have a slideshow that was set up for a day that I thought I wasn't going to be able to work remotely or work in the field. Morning, Octavio. Octavio, no, I missed the relocation. I saw some articles about it. Hey, Grace. Hey, Audrey. Morning, Sandy, Martin, and Jean, and Steve. Hey, Grace. What's up, Steve? Hey, Lisa. So I'm talking with the boat people about potentially adding a second tour. So instead of just one, I'll do two back to back. That'll give us more space. I can even cut capacity back a little bit so we've got a little more room up there. Savannah, we are doing in-person tours. They're on Saturdays. Now, I've just been kind of creeping back a week at a time. But this Saturday's tour is at Rose Hill Cemetery. Tickets on MysteriousChicago.com. Hey, Melissa. Morning, Alex. Give it another minute or so for people to log on. Not on the road today, but doing a little bit of on the road story. Hey, Eric. Hey, Ash. Yeah, we've been setting stuff up for the con the last couple of days over on the effing group chat, figuring out what our schedule's gonna be. Hey, Ann. Hey, Marie. If you're on MysteriousChicago.com, there's also a mailing list that'll keep you apprised of how things are moving. Amy, yeah, I'm gonna do a slideshow from the Colonial Cemetery in Savannah today. It was one I set up on a day that I thought I had to wait for a delivery to come. Audrey, I'm sure I can make it a good one. Is that the 14th? I've got a slot reserved for Graceland on the 14th. Morning, Patty. Whether I might also do like a ghost tour or an H.H. Holmes tour in the evening that day. It kind of depends on what the weather's gonna look like. Like, I thought about adding another one this weekend, but now it's gonna be 88 high. I don't want to do more than one. Yeah, thanks, Susan. Hey, Rodney. Morning, Michelle.
We're driving out west here. Well, let's stop and have a little Father Hines melody of the Colorado sunset. Right.
Morning, Terry. All right, everybody. So, welcome along to Mysterious Chicago Tours. Normally, every morning you see me somewhere out in the city at 10 o'clock doing a miniature tour. Today, I'm just working from home. I had set this one up a couple of days ago. I thought I was going to have to wait for a delivery that was coming at 10. Turned out it didn't come till way into the evening, so hence, I still got this deck all set up over here, so I thought I would just do it today. I think James from Haley's Grave might be out there today. James was with me on this trip. He met up with me. So I run a podcast called Cemetery Mixtape. Hasn't been a new episode in a while, but every episode we do a deep dive into some grave, someplace, usually out of Chicago, and then there's a custom song written to go about them. So for one of them, a few years back, I happened to be nearby Savannah, so we went to Savannah, Georgia to look for the grave of Button Gwinnett. This isn't it. This is the grave of Casimir Pulaski, which I figured I should throw in because, hey, it's Chicago. Casimir Pulaski is a big hero in Chicago. He was a Polish-American Revolutionary War veteran. Chicago had such a large Polish population that we still get Casimir Pulaski Day off of school around here. Or you do if you're still in school. Now, at the Georgia Historical Society that they have down in Savannah, not far from this grave, which is just out in a public square, they even have a bit of the grape shot that killed Casimir Pulaski. Or at least it's reputed to be. I'd love to see what the chain of custody was here. But elsewhere in that same display case, they have got the guns used in the duel that killed Button Gwinnett. Now, Button Gwinnett is... Is there a picture of him here? No. Button Gwinnett is somewhat famous for being the guy who signed of all the people who signed the Declaration of Independence, his signature is the rarest. Button Gwinnett was a guy who had a very, very brief public career. He came over to the United States from England, bought himself a whole bunch of land and enslaved a whole bunch of people in Savannah, but happened to rise up in local politics just in time to become a delegate and sign the Declaration of Independence. He then went back after the death of Archibald Bullock. He became the governor of Georgia for a while. But then, after sending a political rival on a failed mission to take over Florida, that political rival challenged him to a duel, a guy named McIntosh. And this was a duel where they didn't take 10 paces away and turn around. They stood 5 feet apart and faced each other. McIntosh said something like, "Let us see what we are about." So having called each other cowards and poltroons and all the usual stuff that would start a good dueling problem in those days, they just stood 5 feet apart and shot each other like mature adults trying to work out their differences. Button Gwinnett was killed only months after signing the Declaration of Independence. His grave was then lost. He was presumably buried in the old colonial cemetery here in Savannah. In fact, over on the left there, you can see a grave thought to be that of Archibald Bunker. But then in the 1960s, a guy named Arthur Funk, a local history teacher, kind of triangulated where he thought Button might be buried. So here he is digging around in the cemetery. I've never had a cemetery that would let me just start digging before. But here he is digging with his tongue just sticking out of his mouth just a little bit there. And digging where he thought he would, he did in fact find a skeleton. Here he is, brushing that skeleton off with a cigarette hanging out of his mouth. Class and a half. And it gets better after this. So they found in this grave, they found not only a skeleton, but they even found some hair. Which the hair is still on file at the Georgia Historical Society, but I didn't give him enough notice to have it pulled for me. But Arthur Funk then dug up this skeleton. Experts looked it over and said, "That's not Button Gwinnett, that's a woman's skeleton." And he continued to argue, no, this is Button Gwinnett, and kept the skeleton in his guest room for a couple of years, until finally the city decided, fine, if you say it's Button, it's Button. Whoever it is, it's Button Gwinnett now, and allowed him to build this monument over it. This is James from May Haley's Grave standing on it. This is Jamie. James from May Haley's Grave, who has been on several of the time travel pub crawls, including the most recent one, drove up here with Jamie Warner, who played trombone in the band, played guitar on a lot of my own things, passed away last year. But here he is at Button Gwinnett's grave. I was glad to find this shot of him in here. At what is presumed to be Button Gwinnett's grave, anyway. Frankly, I kind of doubt it. I used to go to a high school named after Button Gwinnett. Weird to go to a high school named after a guy who did sign a pretty important document, but generally made a name for himself by enslaving a whole bunch of people, then getting himself killed in perhaps the stupidest way possible. Just next to him over on the left is Archibald Bullock, the first governor of Georgia, and it was an unidentified grave for a long time. His name doesn't appear anywhere on there. There is just this carving of a snake eating its own tail. It is a symbol known as an Ouroboros. Layla from effing Chicago has a tattoo of this. And this inspired a whole lot of urban legends at the time. Some people said that it was the symbol was on there because it was a guy who had died in a duel, which was known to happen with people around here, as we've seen. But then years later, after all of these urban legends about it, somebody, the family of Archibald Bullock said, "Oh no, that's Archie. We've known that the whole time. There's no mystery about it." Or anyway, they say there's no mystery about it. I kind of wonder if maybe this was buttoned the whole time and that the whole dueling angle was true. But they're not the only duelist buried here in the Colonial Cemetery. This place was built back in it was founded in like 1750. It was closed to burials by the mid-1850s, so there's no Confederate soldiers buried here. But there are things like, this is called the duelist's grave, which is kind of nearby here. Now, the duelist's grave is basically illegible. You can read a couple of lines down at the bottom. It's known to have been a guy named James Wilde, whose brother was a popular songwriter at the time. But here, in order to read this, this wasn't always quite this difficult to read. Within the last century or so, it's been a lot more legible. So here's what we're going to do. Down at the bottom, you can read a couple of lines like, overwhelmed with affliction, and his whole family happy until then, overwhelmed with affliction. So just having that line and knowing the name, let's see if we can find this. What we'll do is we'll go to Google Books, type in the name James Wilde, and then just a couple of words there, with affliction. Bring that up, comes nothing of use, but if I move it back to just 20th century, haha, early epitaphs in Georgia, and there it is. There's the whole epitaph right there. I should have gotten a better clip of that, I suppose. But the whole epitaph is there. It gives the little bit of his life story. You can see the brothers humbly, the dust. Didn't I get a better shot of this? Yeah, here we go. James Wilde, Esquire, late paymaster of the Army of the U.S., heat of January 1815, by the hand of a man who a short time before would have been friendless but for him. Some shade there. And expired instantly in his 22nd year, dying as he had lived, with unshaken courage and unblemished reputation. Nobody who dies in a duel has an unblemished reputation. He was the kind of guy who got into duels. By his untimely death, that the prop of a mother's age is broken. The prop of a mother's age is broken. The hope and consolation of sisters is destroyed. The pride of brothers humbled in the dust. And a whole family, happy until then, overwhelmed with affliction. Strangely, they don't put that on the plaque. I mean, if that were me, they've got the whole plaque here about the duelist's grave. It's got one of the brothers' other famous poems, but not the thing about James, but not the actual epitaph that you can't read anymore. But down along the wall, they have a lot of the broken tombstones that couldn't really be identified, just propped up. And if you look up Colonial Cemetery, it attributes a lot of the destruction and a lot of the vandalism to General Sherman and his troops. That's just the kind of thing they like to do down there, is blame everything on General Sherman. From what I could tell in research, there's no evidence that Union troops were ever actually stationed in the cemetery, certainly not camped out in the cemetery, as is constantly claimed. There are a few of the gravestones that have been damaged a little bit to change the epitaph, so it looks like people are like 194 years old. The more likely culprit there is in the early 20th century, this cemetery was effectively used as the playground for a nearby school. That's probably when the pranks were made. Here's another one cool shot of it. Another cool one. Josiah Muir, who departed this life October 1st, 1820. This place was founded over a century before Graceland or Rose Hill were founded. So you see a lot of much more old-timey graves, and a lot of these really narrow and thin ones that were never going to hold up to the elements, especially in a place like this where you might get, hurricane winds. Trees bent over backwards from the hurricane breeze. All right, so that is my slideshow of the coolest things that I found at Colonial Cemetery down in Savannah. Now, I believe it's the other big one that used to have Bird Girl, the statue from the cover of Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, carved by Sylvia Shaw Judson, who regularly appears on Graceland tours here in Chicago. Quick plug for some upcoming stuff. Our next in-person tour is going to be Saturday morning at Rose Hill Cemetery. Tickets are on sale at MysteriousChicago.com. Virtual ones coming up. There is going to be one tonight. Effing Chicago is a collective of Chicago tour guides behaving badly. On Effing Chicago, we wear what we want, just regular t-shirts. We swear if we feel like it. So we're going to do the Effing Chicago edition of the virtual ghost tour tonight, 8 o'clock. I will simulcast it here, but mainly on the Effing Chicago page. Then Thursday night, we are doing a virtual Art Deco Chicago, bringing that one back for the first time. It was previously a Sunday morning tour. And of course, Fridays at 6:30 on the Patty Vasquez Show Facebook page. Join us for Whiskey and a Cookie, in which Patty and friends, including myself, drink whiskey, eat cookies, and discuss the events of the week. Now, we are also working quite a bit right now. Let me bring the picture in here. For Mystericon, October 1st through 3rd, if you go to the Mysterious Chicago Regulars page, you can find out all about October 1st through 3rd at the Palmer House. We are going to be filling that weekend with events. I'm finalizing thing with the boat right now to figure out if we should just do 1 or 2 boat tours on October 1st. Might have time to do a second. Then throughout Saturday, Mandy and Layla, and also Patty Swanson from Effing Chicago, will be doing a couple of free events at the hotel, a couple of paid tours and events. I'll be doing cemetery tours. I'll be doing the tours at the zoo. We'll do boat tours. We'll do all kinds of stuff. Plus, October 3rd on the morning is going to be the cemetery cleanup down at Oak Woods in the Jewish section that the Oak Woods Cemetery itself does not actually control and tend to get overgrown. So yeah, let's have a Miles. You might have already caught Miles walking around in the background a minute ago. Let me go find Miles before we sign off here. Miles, where did you get to, buddy? Did you get in the window? Did you get in this window? I saw you getting in windows. Here you are, Miles. Hey, Miles. Here's the man of the hour, clothed in immense power. There you go. Yeah, Miles' contract did not call for this. There you go, buddy. All right. All right, well, thanks a lot for joining me, everybody. Once again, I'm Adam Seltzer for Mysterious Chicago Tours. In-person tickets available at MysteriousChicago.com for the next Saturday's Rose Hill Tour. Saturday after that, I've got a slot for Graceland at 11:30. We might do one in the evening, too. I'll see how the weather is looking at this point, and everything in the news as well. But until then, everybody, thanks a lot for joining me for this work-from-home edition where we go down to Savannah. So until tomorrow, when I'm back with another morning mini-tour, or tonight if you want to come to Effing Chicago's virtual tour, I'm Adam Seltzer from Mysterious Chicago Tours. That's Miles saying stay safe, stay strong, and of course, if you can, stay spooky.